Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for taking your time to be here and chat with me today. As always, we are going to do a more general Q&A today. And as we dive into the live, we're going to talk a lot about should you take a voluntary exit? And it will probably open up a little bit of a dialogue or conversation to the job market, what's the future state of jobs, how should we be thinking about jobs in general. And hey, Liz, thanks for being here. And as always, these sessions can be a little slow, but we'll work through it, and we'll manage all the information and data as it comes in, and we'll have some fun today. um, YouTube has been a little bit slow recently. And so, I just want to highlight before I dive into a couple of things that I have backed off a little bit on content production, and I definitely want to get back to more short form content, but the longer form content, um, I, I may push to an every other week at this point. It's just something I need to think through. So something I always just want to introduce, and I know that the audience, we've talked about this a couple times, has said to keep going every week, and we'll see. It's a week by week process to decide if I want to do that, but I'll definitely be producing a long form content video this week, and or sorry, this weekend to release on Monday. But I did not do one yesterday, so there's no reason to look back. So if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe, and my business is practiceinterviews.com. And we really do a few things. So, the number one item that I'm going to continue to push and drive people towards is the software, because you can practice on your own. It's so important to spend that time practicing. And one of the big items here is this is free. And I try and scream that every single week, but if there's not a willingness to utilize a free software to enhance our interview skills, it's going to show up in the interviews. And so I know that interviewing is the worst. I know people don't like to prepare and prep for interviews, but at least try out the app for free. You'll never lose free access. We just, for 7 days, will give you all the bells and whistles. And then after 7 days, what will happen is essentially you'll just go down to like the base model if you don't want to pay. But I give this tool away for free, and I socialize it and share it pretty broadly. And it's kind of surprising the number of people who don't actually go in and practice. And that's not to be pokey, it's just to say utilize tools that are going to help you effectively train. I have spent almost 20 years mastering these skills, and definitely as we look at the last 7 years, I've just spent so much time doing one-on-one client work that it's all translated back in the app. So I do have competitors, but if you go practice on their tools, they're just going to spit out what GPT will spit out to you with a nice user interface. So I strongly recommend using any tools that help you chunk down, and that's what ours does. It helps you chunk down and solve in smaller pieces. Um, that was really long. I'm still doing one-on-one coaching. That's interview coaching, negotiation coaching when you want to really optimize that total comp, and career strategy, which is mostly resumes, LinkedIn, and a little bit of career and networking strategy. We also have packages so that if you want to get all those items packaged up, we have that as well. And the third piece is our interview mastery course. If this is your first time here, typically I do long form content every single Monday. It will be released usually around 5 or 6 a.m. Pacific time on Monday. And then I'll come live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. So let's dive in. In our downtime, we'll talk about should you take a voluntary exit if you're kind of fortunate enough to work at one of those companies that would offer that to you. And then, of course, as always, it's a general Q&A. We're trying to make these lives go about an hour. I can already tell we have a small audience today, so we'll see if we get to that timeline, but we'll go as long as we want, and I'll chat through things. And Liz and Daphne, thanks for always showing up for me. I appreciate it. Hey, okay. So my latest app is my best work, and I'm really hoping to be able to share it today, but but I'm on hold for 48 to 72 hours, technically beyond my control. Dev EDU project we'll share next week. Amazing. And I want people to share on this platform. This is I think the thing about the lives that's really important to understand is we're a community, and we can only hold each other up if we're not only asking questions but sharing best practices. And of course, that's not the intent. The intent is for people to come in and get answers to their questions. But if you want to share valuable resources, valuable tools, valuable insights, that's important as well, because the vast majority of the views for these live sessions come after the live session happens, because they're happening at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and that's tough for people probably on the West Coast starting their day. It's tough for people in time zones where it's really not great, especially Southeast Asia, where like I do have a pretty good client base. So, it's I try to go at a time that works for everybody, and we can continue to re-explore this time as well if it's not great for everybody. Okay, so come on here. Rainy Miami. I kind of, I wish we got more rain in San Diego. I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, but um, after 4 or 5 months of no rain, you kind of actually want a little bit of rain, and you want the breakup in the weather, and it's the spoiled nature of living in San Diego. But rainy days are good, and hopefully it pushes you to get stuff done, Daphne. So that's the most interesting piece, and let's kind of dive into this a little bit, Liz. So does voluntary exit mean the same companies are not hiring? It's actually absolutely not. Um, Almost always when companies have voluntary exit programs, whatever they want to call them, almost all the time they actually are hiring. The voluntary exit usually comes for specific role types and or specific product areas. So like, for example, Google has this program now for like Nest employees. And so they're looking to reduce the workforce there, and so they're asking for people to step up. And it's more than that, just that area. I'm just using that as an example. So usually the voluntary exit programs are for companies that are very big and have a lot of money and can actually do it. And so you typically will not see this as much at small companies because they just can't afford it. So the really big companies are never going to stop hiring because there's constant turnover, constant new projects, constant new product areas that they need to grow and develop and evolve. And so the short answer is no. And like Google's one that's doing this right now, and has had this in place in multiple areas for a long time. And of course, part of what we want to discuss today is, as we look not only in present day but in the future state of jobs, is accepting a voluntary exit good? And then like, what do those numbers look like? What do they mean? Looking forward to it, Liz. Yeah, Liz, I definitely want you to share that. You can also, I mean, I think here is a really good place to share, and then we'll make sure next week that link is working when Kate goes back and does the time stamping for me. She'll make sure that link works, and so anybody coming back and watching on the replay can access it. You can also drop it in the Slack community. You can drop it directly in a YouTube comment, like anything you want to do to socialize it. I mean, I appreciate you, and I'm happy to spread the love there. So looking forward to it. And just remember, I mean, always, like, whatever's going on behind the scenes. I was having this conversation last night. I was at a networking event, and I am going to go slow intentionally to allow more people to come in and more comments to come in. But I was talking to one person who was, I don't want to get into what they were doing too much, but, I think they were worried about like shipping an MVP. And I was like, well, you have to ship an MVP. Like, you have to get feedback. You have to see what features people like and don't like. You can't ship it's not that you can't ship a fully functional product, but it's not going to be obviously at the level that we ever want it to be initially, because it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be released at a perfect state. It should be released at an imperfect state, so you can get feedback and grow it based on what the users say. And if you are thinking about starting your own business, like, One of the core foundational books that I think is great is just The Lean Startup. Um, it really teaches you how to build based on feedback as opposed to building based on what you think the users want, because you can spend a lot of money doing that. Seattle, one of my favorite cities in the world. Thanks for being here. And it's been a while. I don't think I've been in Seattle in, I think, about 8 years since I was last there. So it's been a long time. Thank you for the app to share projects. Let me relate it to this audience. I've heard that HMs with openings get 1K plus applications, no time to review portfolios, supply links, etc. Yeah, projects on the first page. If a project is more than 6 months old, it's outdated. So I'm looking forward to publishing, and I think your audience will find it useful. Okay. AI is moving so fast, you need relevant projects. It works both ways. Have learned a ton by building the RAG project, okay, and focused on dev edu, but could be interesting for anyone interested in AI. Yeah, and I think like the we can go back to a couple of these things, Liz, because let's unpack these items one by one. So, um, yeah, that HMs with openings get more than 1,000 applications. Like if you're going after any sort of elite company, it's not 1,000, it's thousands. And it's because it's very easy to click buttons and click easy apply. And that's why I'm so against applications, because we can't think about applications in a singular fashion. We're thinking about our application on our background. We're not thinking about the collective flooding that's happening and how hard it can be to parse through that information. So when we think about applying, um, just think about it in the sense like, okay, you're applying to a job. Okay, maybe you're a fit. And sometimes, occasionally, we'll find that ideal fit and we just want to apply. But the reason why I usually say don't do it is it's not just about your application, it's the fact that your application to stand out when thousands of people apply and muddy the system, it just makes it much, much harder on people. So just something to keep in mind. Now, the big thing with AI that I'm hearing a lot of is people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go get like an AI certification." Somebody told me they were going to go back to school to get more educated on AI, and I would just say like, I don't know. If it's even like the fundamentals, like on AI certs and training, like they just get dated so quickly that I think we constantly want to be learning, but it's more like the daily evolution of watching TikToks or watching Reels or learning information from YouTube or going to LinkedIn to gather data. LinkedIn's not as great, but let's just really think about how we're ingesting and taking in information and what's happening in the AI space. Because if you could spend like a month taking an AI certification, that certification is useless in a month. It's going to happen so quickly. And I think this is the constant conversation that we need to keep having around AI is if we take a snapshot of AI today, well, it's a very, very useful tool, right? But I think that the continued snapshots, that it's not going to evolve at a pace that is so incredibly fast. I think that's where the challenge area, that's kind of the breaking point in people's minds. Like when we hit AGI and then we hit super intelligence, those things are going to happen so fast that it's not like we're going to take a year or two after those things happen for the world to change. The world's going to change in like 2 to 4 weeks. And I just want people to be ready for it and just be informed. When it comes to AI stuff, just be in the know. It really scares me how little people know, and it's not about you needing to leverage it. It's just the knowledge of what's the future and what's coming, and that will help us be more mentally prepared. That was a tangent. I hope it helps somebody. Hi, Jeff. I was the one who asked about setting a 30, 60, 90-day plan, but was rejected for the role. Okay. The feedback I received is that my interview responses were too long. I listened to your responses on your videos, and most of your responses get to the 6-minute mark. I got to the final stage. Okay. And I was also told that my responses should be concise. My question is, you would usually advise that we go deep. Is 6 minutes too long for a behavioral question of ambiguity? Um, okay, so yeah, I hope that my coaching, and I'll go back to those missed items in a second. I hope that my coaching has been clear on this. Like, the examples I give in the videos are longer than I would expect you to give in an interview. I am trying to be incredibly robust and show all the level of detail in all the areas that you can share. But I hope that you've been able to see a lot of my other content really like behavioral answers in the 3 to 4 minute category. And that's really where I've provided all the coaching is 3 to 4 minutes. And it's a very specific breakdown. 30 to 40 seconds on the situation and task, 2 to 3 minutes on the actions, and 30 to 40 seconds on the results. But ideally, 30 seconds on the situation and task, 30 seconds on the results. That gives us a minute, and then 2 to 3 minutes on the actions. If it's 5, 6 minutes on the actions, it is too robust and too much. But also in the video, if I don't get really robust, I can't show people what's possible. So you're going to see these what tend to be pretty long answers. But if you go to the foundational behavioral videos, I always do recommend 3 to 4 minutes. And if there was any confusion there, I sincerely apologize. Depth is really important, but it's a mix of being very specific and brief. And that's incredibly challenging. Those things kind of battle against each other. But brevity combined with specificity is really the key. And I'm sorry that you didn't get the role. P.S. I was referring to a recent LinkedIn post with an HM from DevRel opening at GitHub. He wanted 2 links to the latest AI work, and his requirement is most applications I see supply 1 to 2 links of best work. Oh, he wanted best work. Well, Liz, maybe you can come back and tell us a little bit more here. I think I'm a little bit confused by the comment, but no hiring manager is going to go through 1,000 applications. And of course, of those 1,000 applications or 2,000 or 3,000, like the number that are actually a fit is very, very small. And that's what the systems are supposed to do. They're supposed to find matches to eliminate people who aren't a match, especially people who like literally have no qualifications for the job and just click easy apply. Again, you'd be surprised. Okay. And it's just, I want to give people like the lens and vision of, look, I didn't look at a lot of applications in my time at Google. I think that's a misconception of what recruiters do. They have online, at these big, super big companies, they'll have online, like the system will kick some stuff out. They'll have online review teams, they'll have sourcers who review these applications. But the occasions where I was really struggling and I would go and look at applications, I mean, the vast, vast majority of people, it's not like they were kind of close. They hadn't even done a similar job. They may have not even worked a desk job before, but they wanted to work at Google, so they just apply. So again, that's one thing that I want everybody to think about. These applications and applying, it's just getting so flooded with people who are so not qualified for the role that it's hurting your chances. The tech layoffs are really adding up. A few months ago, Microsoft and Oracle and Intel. Do you think it'll be as bad as 2008 or 2001? Um, well, I think like technically tech layoffs, Daphne, I think the worst year was maybe 2022 was like really bad. 2022, 2023, I think if we look at the numbers, I don't know, I'd have to go back and double check. Look, my opinion remains the same. I think layoffs year over year will only increase. I don't think we're going to see the biggest layoff number this year, but like get ready for it. Again, like it's this gloom and doom that we speak about. It's really, really challenging. But these companies are for profit. And when they realize they can be more profitable by automating instead of paying people, that's what they're going to do. They're going to do what's best for their board of directors. And their board of directors is going to influence them to save money wherever possible. And so if I can completely automate the recruiting function and I'm paying X amount in salary to recruiters, I'm going to do it because it's going to help my bottom line. It's going to be better for the board of directors. It's going to be better for the shareholders. So, yeah, definitely. I think like this is probably this may be the last year where we don't see like crazy numbers, but I think as we get into 2026, especially 2027, the layoff numbers are going to quickly uptick into the millions, and we're going to have significant job loss. There's just really no way around it. I don't think something could happen, and maybe whatever that thing that happens would be good for humanity, because I think we can all be honest, right? The way that Sam Altman or anybody is running any of these AI companies, they're just racing to the top. They just want to win, and it could be at the sake of humanity that they want to win so bad that some challenging things might happen. Absolutely. Yes, and let's go to reference this. So just to reference situation, 30 to 45 seconds. Okay, no, let's actually revamp this. I couple the situation and task together. Why? Because the task is like, I don't want to say it's useless, but the task can provide some clarity, but it's a one sentence. So I was tasked with getting the program on track within a 3-month time frame. I was tasked with testing this particular piece of software to make sure that we hit a product launch in 1 month or 2 sprints. And so the task is really one sentence. And then the situation is really is about 3 sentences. Sentence 1 is your street cred, your role in company, and a little bit of background if needed. The next 2 sentences are the challenge area, brief and very specific. And then that 4th sentence is your task. So the situation and task, 30 seconds, ideally up to 40, 45 seconds. And then the actions, 2 to 3 minutes. And then the results, you really should be able to deliver results in 30 seconds. So let me bring in an analogy. I did this video a million years ago, but I love the visual of a sandwich. And like when we talk about a sandwich, I'm just going to go with my American brain. So a typical American sandwich. Top slice of bread is the situation and task. Bottom slice of bread is the results. And the middle, meat, veggies, both, whatever we like in the middle, that's the sandwich, because we want the actions to be the most robust part of our answer. The top slice of bread and the bottom slice of bread are absolutely critical. They hold the sandwich together, but that should be the visual you're seeing. So why is that so important? Well, when you type out your answer in a Google Doc, for example, you see this section. This is the slice of bread. This is your situation and task. This is your actions. That's the meat or veggies or both. And then this is the bottom section, which is your results. If you create that visual and type out your answers to have it look that way, you'll have great answers. Getting a job is becoming more and more difficult day to day, even when you have the skills they're asking for. So I think one of the things that's happening that we need to talk about is that if you're in the U.S., we had a pretty bad jobs report. That's going to remain consistent. It's hard to talk about this because I think anybody who's here knows that I'm an extremely positive person. I live my life through positivity. I think it's the lens that we should live through, and it's a recognition of reality. And the reality is that it is absolutely getting more difficult, and it's not getting difficult for one group of people or another group of people. It's getting more difficult for all groups, all roles at all levels, period. College college students who are coming out of college, the numbers are the lowest they've been. So entry level hiring is down. If we get into more experienced mid level managers, those roles are getting eliminated very, very quickly. And then at the high end, we know that more than ever, ageism is playing a role. We know that if you are maybe in your 40s, 50s, or 60s and still looking for work, that the reality is that you're going to face some ageism. Obviously, there's ways around that. I would chop off, don't put your college dates, chop off earlier employment, do anything we can to make ourselves look younger. But then there's all those things happening in all the levels. And then what has been the best paying job basically since the late 70s going into the early 80s has been software engineers. That job that job holistically will likely be completely gone in a couple years. So that's a crazy thing to be thinking about too. Now, it doesn't mean that engineers can't pivot and really use that strong technical knowledge to get into maybe a technical sales role where their technical knowledge is really good, but then their communication skills are really important. Communication skills will be the differentiator moving forward. And if we practice and focus in on only one thing, communication is going to be the most critical. And you learn a ton about your communication skills through job interviews. You learn how to create context. You learn how to be brief and concise. You learn how to really dive into the how. You learn how to share impact. You learn how to clarify appropriately. You learn how to organize your information. You learn how to utilize assumptions to your benefit. You learn about transitions and how to create back and forth. So there's all sorts of learnings that come from interview practice, and just something I wanted to highlight. Okay. Still confused after 2 years. Should I focus on service based solutions using AI or on building AI products? What's your thoughts? Love from India. Well, first of all, thanks for showing up so late. I know it's late in India now, it's 10 p.m. So this one is tricky. Okay. So, um, the first part of like service versus product, um, that's really up to you and your skill and your niche, like whatever you want to do. So I would recommend focusing on like what's exciting. And then of course, like when it comes to building any of these products, how robust do you want to make the tool? Because any robust tool is going to require a lot of money. And trust me, I can tell you, like, I think people just have no idea. They're like, oh, I can go in and roll out an agent. Yeah, you can, but it still requires a massive amount of code to like really build, whether it's a service based or like product with AI. So it just takes more money and more time. So anybody who wants to get into the AI space, and I'm now 2 years into my journey. I started building my AI native product 2 years ago. I can tell you it's going to take way more money and way more time than you thought. And so, how are you looking at the financials? Are you set up financially to run something that's relatively robust, or how lean do you need to get? That's number one. And then the big one that nobody thinks about, myself included, because I came into it with the wrong lens. I thought everybody in this community would just instantly buy my app and keep my app, which has not been the case. Um, you need to understand how you're going to sell and market that product. So I think even before building a product out, whether it's service based or product based or whatever you want to do with AI, just understand what are the financials and how are you going to sell and market it. And then how do you build that really niche down the niche that's going to make sure that your product is a little protected from one of these big AI companies coming in and just kicking you out, and then you've made the investment and your tool is not worth anything. Um, the reason why I can speak to all this stuff is because this is stuff that I'm thinking about constantly with my product as well. What kinds of new jobs do you think AI will create, and what skills or areas would be smart to start learning right now for somebody in sales? Um, I do not believe that AI will create new jobs. I think AI will take all the jobs. I think that this is, and I need to talk about this in the right way and the right lens. Uh, historically, historically, the trends had, when something new came out, it had new job creation. But when we create something that is smarter than us, can problem solve better, do it at much faster pace, do it 24/7, and maybe make a mistake here or there, but not make the sheer volume mistakes. It can work 3 times as much as us. It can work a lot faster. It knows all the information. I think that all these articles are like, we're going to evolve and grow with AI. I mean, that it just doesn't really make sense. I don't know why I would hire a human to do something that AI could do. Now, people are going to say people want the human connection. Sure, but it's very possible that those human connections come outside of the workforce. So, for people who still do want human connection and for those jobs that will last, as somebody in sales, you want to learn and constantly be learning and evolving and growing your AI skills. And at the same time, your default mode is communication. And so I I try to read one business book, like a learning book, something, and I love it. So like one learning book a week. And so I'm always looking for one or two takeaways, just one or two from those books that I can add to my communication style and how I communicate with others and the information that I introduce and bring in. And so I would tell people massively absorb content and just up your learning game. I think that's going to be the best way to navigate an AI world. Like learn, 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 and especially what we're doing now, communication skills. They're going to be key and paramount. And if you're in sales, of course, it's going to be relevant, but there's not going to be this whole new creation of all these new jobs because of AI. AI will just do the jobs for us, and that's what I strongly believe. And I don't see it another way. And of course, that's just my unique lens. But I'm obviously not singular in that vision and view. Thank you, Jeff. So I've gotten almost 20 interviews since getting laid off. Have applied for over 200 jobs in the past 3 months. In a week, I had 4 interviews to the extent I was interview fatigued. Well, okay. So first things first, getting all these interviews is great. 20 interviews is, I think a lot of people maybe in this live session or watching it on the replay when we replay it, would be very jealous of that number. I don't agree with the applying to over 200 jobs in 3 months, but you have something in your background that's triggering interviews. And so you have some sort of unique experience, and or you've worked at a company that has a big brand name, and that's why you're getting interviews through applications, because that's really what it takes. It takes a very unique skill, and a lot of times it takes having a big brand. Those will get you interviews through applications. If you don't have those things, you would not be getting interviews through applications. And I still always will recommend don't apply to any jobs, network. And I understand that people aren't going to follow that advice, but you have something in your background that's allowing you to get those interviews. There's something there that other people don't have. And yes, we can get interview fatigue, and there's something to be said to push through that fatigue, keep practicing, keep going, because that momentum can be really powerful and impactful. And we just kind of got to stay disciplined and weather the storm and keep going. But it's good to hear that you're getting interviews. You're welcome. Okay, absolutely. I'm sincerely tired of interviewing, and I know I have to keep going. Okay. I took a break last week, and this week, how do you recommend me strategizing so I convert these interviews into offers? Well, obviously, I'm gonna do it. So, I mean, if you haven't used this, what we do in the app, and again, I'm not here to sell, maybe a little bit, but we chunk. It's chunking. So it's like solve for this challenge area in your behavioral answers, solve for this challenge area in your hypothetical answers. Chunking is a great way to have better success. Don't try and fix holistically, fix a piece, then go fix another piece. That's where you're going to have better success. Trying to always fix the whole can be really overwhelming and stressful. So, 7-day free trial, all the bells and whistles, and then you'll still have it for free, but we remove a lot of the bells and whistles. So, if that's something you want to look at, practicing with other humans is really important. If you are getting a lot of interviews but are not getting the job, there's something you can't see. And somebody else will call it out for you, an app will call it out for you. But if it's just writing it down and practicing it, you need some of that feedback in whatever facet it's going to be. So I hope that helps. Absolutely. You are welcome. I was just so motivated and not thought in this direction. Okay, yeah, and let's kind of go back to it. You learn a lot when you run a business, and if anybody else wants to speak to this, Liz, if you want to throw out what you've learned by running your projects, but the core foundation, the first thing that I thought I did kind of well with running my business was I had a financial plan. That was my number one thing. I didn't have anything else, but I knew the financials of what I could do and couldn't do. And the plan that I set, and I'll be fully transparent, was I told my wife, you need to allow me to work for 2 years without making money, because I was fortunate enough to be in that situation where I hadn't cashed out any of my Google stock. So I had a chunk of Google stock. I knew I could live like, well, we always live kind of like well below our means. So I knew we could kind of live very like casually, not be buying all this crazy stuff. And that was my financial plan. I kind of mapped it out, and I was like, okay, if I fail for 2 years, I'll go get a corporate job. And obviously the first year, pretty early on, I started making money, and that was okay. The second piece that you'll learn is sales and marketing. So the reason why the first half of the business was successful, the coaching business, the course, was because I learned that I could sell and market through content and build a content strategy. It wasn't the intent or goal. I just never had to advertise because I was constantly doing content, and that was bringing in clients. But then what I quickly learned when I built the app is that I actually didn't know how to sell and market in a more traditional way. And that has been a very, very painful and expensive exercise. So we got the money, we got the sales and marketing. The next piece is systems and process. How are you going to build those systems and process to make sure it's rigid and it follows a flow? With no systems and process, things will break down, and they'll break down quickly. And these are just, then you get into like the accounting and finance stuff and the bookkeeping, and there's so many nuanced things that you need to be thinking about. So it's a lot, and you kind of need to have a core understanding of a few of these things. And then the other piece is you just need to jump in there, epically fail, and kind of figure it out along the way. But those are the core things I think I would highlight to anybody who's maybe considering starting a business. And any AI native business now it's a fun place to be. Second question, I had 2 sourcers reach out to me for an account strategist role, one on the engaged team and the other in the mid-market in the same week. So I scheduled to speak with both of them, hoping to let them. You started using the app this week. Okay, amazing. Yeah, and so like, this is, I'll be critical because this is, you should not hear from 2 Google recruiters for the same role, an AS role, an account strategist role. These are Google Ads roles at Google, and so you shouldn't hear from 2 recruiters. You should hear from 1 recruiter. The other recruiter should check the system to see that another recruiter reached out. But hey, if you're getting 2 reach outs, just let the recruiters know, hey, I heard from Sue, and you're talking to Bob, and you can say, I also heard from Sue. And so again, just let them know that you're talking to both of them, because clearly they're not checking the system, because if Bob went first, Sue should not have engaged with you. Okay. But The amount of bad practices from Google recruiters these days is shocking. So we could get into that, but I don't think it's a good use of our time. I had an interview with an HM at Google last week. I stumbled a bit in the hypothetical and was turned down from proceeding. Does Google have a cooldown period where they essentially auto reject new apps? I don't think that the system is auto rejecting you. It's just the recommendation is a year for the same exact role. Now, for different roles, there's really no cooldown period, but it's got to be different enough, right? So it can't be just like, let's go back to that account strategist role. It can't be for one team and then you're trying to interview for another team. It would just have to be a completely different, like client facing or sales type of role. And then they might consider you. Typical cooldown periods a year. It's not a hard cooldown time, meaning like it's not like set in stone. It's just a recommendation. That's all. I can absolutely share. This is it. app.practiceinterviews.com. That's their product. It's an interview tool that helps you with your interview skills. The biggest thing I always want to comment on is it it focuses in on chunking. And I know I've talked about this a million times, and anybody here, like, I might see the numbers of viewers drop off when I start talking about this, but I don't build, like, the product is not built, and all my coaching is built on only one thing. Well, it's two things. It's my experience and then cognitive psychology. So I don't coach on what the brain doesn't tell us is important. So everything that I do is backed by how the brain works. And that was not the intent. It just became a fun part of the process. I would be like, why am I coaching in this way? Like, why does this make so much sense? And for years, I was backing it up via Google. And I was like, validate why this makes sense. I just wanted to validate that my coaching was effective. I kept finding that it was connected to the brain. And now, with obviously AI tools, it's much more fun because I can quickly identify, I can say, why does this kind of coaching make sense? And that's how I built the tool, is to not say, hey, this is what Jeff thinks is the best. This is coaching based on cognitive psychology, data, science. It's not just fluffy and made up, and it's not just a pretty UI that just throws a GPT answer in the background. And that's what all my competitors do. And it's hard to sell against that because, again, not really a product-based sales and marketing strategy. It's just, can you can people? Oh, I think my camera went off for a second, but I'm back. Okay. I hope that helps. But it's just app.practiceinterviews.com. My best advice would be to build an MVP around something you love, launch it and invite others, fail or succeed, learn. After failing twice before, I think I finally have something useful. Yeah. And I think also a critical item is, it's how much pain can you take on, right? Like, how much are you willing to, like, burn the bridges or burn the ships to be successful? And if you can go out and sell and market your product and you truly believe it's the best, over time you probably will win, but it may just take a little bit longer than possible. And I wouldn't go out and push and sell my product if I didn't believe wasn't I believe it's the best on the market. That's what I believe. And that makes it easy to sell. So if we do build something, we just got to be super passionate about it and know what we've built is fantastic. Makes it a lot easier to sell. And we have way more conviction, and therefore it's more believable because we truly do believe it. Okay, continuing. The sourcer asked me a bunch of hypothetical questions, and I was hoping to continue the conversation with the other sourcer. The other sourcer saw that I had connected with the first recruiter and canceled our call. I'm really interested in the mid-market role, and the first sourcer already rejected me for the engage role. So I booked a call with a second sourcer, to explain and pitch. I'm more interested in the mid-market role because of my experience. Will he speak to me knowing full well my process has ended with the first sourcer? The call is this week and I want to better position myself. Yeah, a rejection from a sourcer won't necessarily stop the process. Like if you got reached out to by two sourcers or two recruiters, just because one person doesn't see a fit doesn't mean that somebody else won't see a fit. And by the way, a sourcer coming in and asking a lot of hypothetical questions, it's not a good scenario. Like they're not really qualified to do that. It's tough feedback, but they shouldn't be coming after you. They should just be seeing finding out a little bit about your background, role fit, and just doing a little bit of a communications check. They're just checking that you can communicate appropriately, that you show up on time, you're gracious and kind, you ask good questions. But like really diving in and asking you tough hypothetical questions in a sourcing screen, I don't know. If they expect you to be like overly prepared for that call, I don't think it's fair. I don't really love that. I never came after candidates. Some candidates I needed to ask questions because that's what the hiring manager wanted. In the last year at Google, I asked a lot of technical questions because that's what the role required, was a lot of tech. So I'd ask technical questions, and if they couldn't pass that, then they were out. But hypothetical questions from a sourcer, it's rough. I would just, they said, what happened in the last call? Say, it didn't appear as though it was a match for that role, but I'm really more interested in this role, and here's why. So you can just keep a really positive pitch and tone. We don't want to slam the other sourcer. We just want to talk about why we're excited for this role. Okay, we are at the 47-minute mark, and we are currently out of questions. So we haven't actually talked a lot about should you take a voluntary exit. So let's spend just a minute talking about that, and then I'll come back to your question. So with a voluntary exit, I'm seeing it depends on how you view the future state of jobs in the world. But if you are somebody who's interested in running your own business or working on your own kind of product, or you see another opportunity somewhere else, like these voluntary exits can really set you up for success financially. I think they're incredibly viable and something to explore. And if the goal is to take this and take a voluntary exit or a package and walk away and then go looking for another job, I do not think that's a good strategy. The job market's super, super tight. So I think the voluntary exit works if you have maybe another opportunity in the background, or you have a project you want to work on. But if the goal is to take it and then go find another job, I think that could be extremely challenging. So it's just something to keep in mind. We can continue to talk about it if the audience likes. I was so shocked. I felt he wouldn't advocate for me. If he was my recruiter, to asking me those questions were shocking, and I think I blew one of the hypotheticals. Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, one of the things I learned throughout my coaching process is that I don't know that I really was recognizing what great answers sounded like. I think I had some ideas, but I didn't have all the ideas, because recruiters don't have like a really, really strong knowledge of good interview answers. I think they do, but unless they've really done real interviews, recruiter screens are not real interviews. I'm talking about like really interviewing other people to get hired at the company, whether that's for a recruiter role or sourcer role, but they need to conduct a lot of real interviews. The recruiter screen's kind of a fluffy interview. It's not a real interview. Just my 2 cents. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in a wrap up. As always, I'm happy to answer any additional questions if they come in. And if not, we can bounce off and I can wish everybody a great day. But again, any additional questions, welcome. I'm happy to answer them. And I always show up for these lives for no determined amount of time. I'll show up as long as the questions keep coming in. But let's roll into the wrap up, and happy to answer anything else. 7-day free trial with all the bells and whistles. app.practiceinterviews.com. After those 7 days, you're still going to have access. It's just going to be a scaled down account. You're just not going to have the access to all the bells and whistles. If you're not using a software to practice your interview skills and you're actively interviewing, it's a great, inexpensive option to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. And we chunk, give you feedback in small sections. That allows your brain to do better. And chunking is proved by science that that's how our brains work the best. So definitely recommend it. I'm still doing one-on-one coaching. So that's interview coaching, negotiation coaching to really like optimize that total comp, especially. And then one-on-one career strategy, a lot of resume, LinkedIn, and some networking tips as well. I have packages, and part of those packages include the interview mastery course that I created. So that's also a standalone product that you can buy. I do new original content every Monday. I've been going every other Monday for the last month, but I'm going to kind of judge that and make a final decision this year if I'm going to go every other week or keep it every week. Definitely go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every week, and then I'm going to continue to do shorts on an ad hoc basis. I'm going to answer these last final questions and then bounce off. Thank you. You'll keep using the app and do a month subscription. Awesome. And so helpful. I really appreciate all your sessions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I'll continue to show up as people continue to show up and ask great questions. And as always, I just sincerely appreciate this community. You're what makes these lives possible. And in these live sessions, we talk a lot about a lot of things. And hopefully there was just like one nugget of value or one takeaway. I'm always looking for that one thing. Can I take one thing out of a video, one thing out of a book, one thing out of any learning, and it kind of locks into my brain and I can apply it? Thanks, Liz, for always showing up. Thank you for being here. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to bounce and I'll be back next week. Thank you.